Hello, I'm Henry.
And I'm Trey.
And welcome to Marvelous, a Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast,
where we go through the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe show by show, movie by movie, and today we're talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 2, Episodes 17 through 22.
The finale of Season 2! We have reached the end of our second season.
Yes, we have. How exciting is that?
Pretty exciting. This finale has a lot more than I remembered it having. I remembered the Inhuman arc being the huge focus, but I forgot how much there was about Ward and how much of an impact Cal had within the last few episodes.
Yeah.
Away from the afterlife, I mean.
I feel like it would have been better if they made it just solely focused on the Inhumans stuff and made the Inhumans finale better.
I mean, I like the Inhumans finale. I just really wish we got more of them. Jiaying specifically is a really interesting, cool character.
I think we can get into that later.
Fair enough.
So, Henry, what happened in these episodes?
Well, Trey, let me tell you what happened on these 6 episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. After the shakeup within S.H.I.E.L.D., Coulson, Hunter, and Fitz are on the run, with Fury's toolbox and the rest of S.H.I.E.L.D. are after them. Meanwhile, Skye is spending time at the afterlife, learning how to manage her powers and getting to know her family a bit better. But with S.H.I.E.L.D. on the hunt for Skye and the other Inhumans, and Ward on the loose, who knows what will happen to our heroes? Can they trust Ward when they need him to find Skye? And what are the Inhumans up to? Find out on these episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Dun dun dun! So, the first thing we get in these episodes that I thought was worth talking about is Skye learning how to control her powers. She learns that she can resonate with frequencies of vibrations and everything around her, and she can amplify them and essentially moves a mountain by causing an avalanche.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where if her power is truly the ability to detect and control the vibrations of anything ever, she has one of the most broken powers in existence, not just causing earthquakes. She could heat things up. She could split matter apart. She can cause all sorts of havoc.
I completely agree, and this is why I hate that the show's direction with her powers is let's just continuously throw vibrations at people, and that is all I will ever do.
It's kind of funny because at the end of these bundles of episodes, she spends most of the time with bracers that turn her powers off, so she barely gets to use them, even in this season when her powers are introduced.
Yeah, but when she does use them, I feel like it's at least cooler than later on.
I suppose.
We also get Jiaying announcing that she's Skye's mom, which with a really quick turnaround for that thread.
Yeah, we do. And I really like how different Skye meeting Jiaying is to Skye meeting Cal. Like, Cal's like this crazy maniacal man. So it was really scary meeting him. And Jiaying just seems like this wonderful motherly person at first.
Yeah.
I mean, she does hide who she is to Skye at first, but throughout these episodes, you see she has a relatively good reason, and she gets to know Skye a lot better by meeting her as a person before meeting her as her mom.
Which is funny when you think about it, because they actually switch places, Cal and Jiaying. He starts as a monster and becomes more of a man, and she starts as a woman and becomes more of a monster.
Or she was a monster the entire time, or at least the entire time we saw her on screen.
Well, I'm referring solely to your comment about how she was introduced as this gentle woman.
Oh, yes, for sure.
But she does explain that Cal pieced her back together after Whitehall desecrated her, and that they searched the Earth for Skye after that. So Cal has known that she's been alive this entire time, which kind of annoys me that he lied to Skye about it before, and I don't really understand that decision.
Yeah, the only thing I could think of is that maybe he thought she died during the search or something after they split up. I don't know. It's really weird.
I mean, he tells Skye she died from Whitehall, and that's all he says. She's dead because of Whitehall.
Yay, retcons.
Sure, within the same season.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then Jiaying says Cal was too much of a monster that she turned away from him. But that also seems false since she's more of a monster than he is. So I'm guessing it's just because he was a messy monster and she didn't want to deal with it.
I mean, she wasn't that much of a monster until the finale when she's like, all right, S.H.I.E.L.D's coming, let's murder them all.
I mean, he talks about how she has no regard for human life after this, and she's fine just sucking the life out of anyone to heal herself and doesn't really care about people anymore and is just like...
To be honest, if the whole plot with S.H.I.E.L.D. finding them didn't happen, I would figure she'd continue living relatively peacefully up in the afterlife. I don't actually see her as that evil until the end.
You don't think sucking the life out of people to continue staying alive is evil?
We don't really know much about who she sucked the life out of or how or in what context after being torn apart by Whitehall, aside from that village. So to be honest, I don't feel very strongly about that, like about her being evil because she doesn't care about sucking the life out of people.
What about destroying an entire village?
She didn't do that. Cal did that. He offered sacrifices to her, which, sure, she did take it in, but like...
Coulson also made it sound like she was the one constantly giving the orders about who he's killing and about this village of people as well.
I don't know. That whole thing is very confusing because didn't that village get destroyed when Skye was like a baby? And that's when S.H.I.E.L.D. rescued her? Like, I'm just confused.
Honestly, I'm also confused because I was trying to piece together when the heck her desecration at the hands of Whitehall was supposed to factor into Skye and them losing her and their search for her.
Yeah, because didn't Whitehall find her in like the 50s or something?
I don't know.
I know that they showed it in the very beginning of the season or something along those lines, but I'm just confused by it all.
I kind of wish that they had placed Whitehall's stuff in the timeline of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Skye, like, originally, so that it wasn't so confusing to be like, well, after Whitehall killed me, we searched for you. It's like, but when did you lose her in the first place?
Yeah, I'm super confused by it, and that's why I don't feel like Jiaying is that horrible. I think she's horrible in the finale, but I feel like it almost felt kind of rushed and crazy, and it wouldn't have happened if S.H.I.E.L.D. wasn't coming. Like, she wasn't being the aggressor, but once the world knew about them, she was like, all right, well, I'm going to take care of this all for good.
I hate that you're saying this because I hate Jiaying.
I actually like her. I actually really dislike that they killed her.
Okay.
I think she's a really interesting character, and I think they rushed her conclusion.
I think she's a terrible character. Everything about her makes me so angry.
I feel like the first time I watched this season, I didn't like her, but now I do.
You were correct the first time. Anyways, back to Jiaying and Skye's meetup. Jiaying also tells Skye that they have to keep their relationship a secret at this point because no one can find out because of her rules. But you don't actually see anything happen once people find out, so I'm really confused why this was even a plot point and why this mattered at all.
Yeah, it was really rushed past because there was only like one day that people knew about it. And that's part of why I like Jiaying, and I wish we got more of her, is because the culture of the afterlife and her is something I really wish we got to see more of, and instead it got destroyed in 5 seconds before we actually got to explore this whole world.
That I agree with, and I think a fundamental flaw of the storytelling is not taking that as far as it should have gone. Like, they definitely implemented a lot of little details, like all the rules that Jiaying had in place and all the things, the politics and what would happen if people found out about Skye and how Jiaying was the leader of this people. And really, we don't see much of any of that. We don't see the people question Jiaying, and we don't see why Jiaying is held as this such high regard and only her opinion matters unless she's just been killing anyone who disagrees with her as she does in these episodes.
I mean, she made Afterlife herself.
Yes.
She is these people's hero. She rescued them and led them to their new and human, better future. I don't see any reason why they would distrust her other than the fact that she limits the amount of people that become Inhumans, which is another thing that they just never explore. Why? Why is there a limit? Other than she sees that people would be bad if they were given powers, like that little girl who went crazy and started mind controlling people, which is how we got the whole Calvary story.
Yeah, that was another thing that wasn't explored. Like, there should be way more Inhumans. Why aren't people getting their birthrights? The thing that I find so unbelievable, yeah, she started Afterlife, whatever, she was part of the original Elders, blah, 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 but...
What original Elders? She is the creator.
She said that the Elders would constantly give their lives to keep her going.
Those were the elders from the Chinese village, not the afterlife. She made the afterlife. That's the thing that I was really confused about when we were talking about the afterlife in the previous episode, when I was saying Gordon is the only one who can get in and out. And in these episodes, it's confirmed that Jiaying made the afterlife, and also that Gordon is the only teleporter and human ever that they are aware of. So all of this is super confusing. We have no idea how old Jiaying even is. She could be 1,000 years old. She could be 200. We have no idea. All of this is shrouded in mystery, so we can't make any conclusions. From my perspective, at least.
Yeah. If the elders were only for the village, then I misinterpreted what they were saying.
To be honest, I have no idea. We haven't seen any other elders in the afterlife. The closest thing to that we had was Gordon, who was her second in command, and he's significantly younger. So, as far as I can tell, there are no elders in the afterlife other than her. Everyone else seemed pretty young, to be honest.
The entire time I thought they were insinuating that there were others, though.
That's what I thought in the previous episodes, but in these episodes, they confirm that Jiaying is the one who made it. Gordon's the only one who gets in and out, and Gordon's the only teleporter these Inhumans ever had.
I'm not talking about Gordon. Stop talking about Gordon.
He's important because I am assuming the afterlife wasn't created until he was an Inhuman. So I'm guessing afterlife has only existed for 20 years or so.
That can't even be the case unless the room that looks identical to the one they have, that he was shown just having been changed in, is a different room.
I agree. It makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense. I have no idea. Gordon breaks the rules.
So stop drawing conclusions of timeline based on him when it's already breaking everything.
Okay, point is, we can't make any definite conclusions about any of this timeline. It doesn't make any sense.
Yes.
Well, it's not that it doesn't make sense, there's just no details.
I agree, and it's a huge flaw, and it really bothers me. That's part of why I hate this second half of the season.
I just wish the entire season was the afterlife stuff. This stuff is so interesting, and it's a bummer that it was only shoved into, like, the total of 8 or so episodes.
I have a problem with that because I think the Whitehall stuff could have also been more of a struggle, and the Hydra stuff could have been more, so I feel like maybe both should have gotten a full season instead of just half and half.
Yeah, probably. I'm not saying the Whitehall stuff is bad. I'm saying that this stuff is great and should have been more.
Yes.
And it just got weakened by how little lore we got.
But back to my point that I was trying to make.
Sorry that we keep circling around it. Yes.
Jiaying, all of her rules about what everyone can and can't do and her secrets and who gets changed and just everything that she's said in these episodes makes me think there would definitely have been people that would be rebelling against this and rebelling against her and questioning her right to rule them all just because she started it. Because that's how humanity is. So I don't buy that everything's just been, oh, just everything I say goes and it's always been that way, the end.
Well, that's the thing. These people don't actually live there. The only permanent residents are Jiaying and Gordon. Everyone else is still a glorified guest. They can come in and out, as Jiaying says, as Gordon takes them. She has full control of who even gets to be there. So that's why I don't think there's any rebellion, because it's not like she's the queen of a kingdom. She's just the arbiter of who becomes an Inhuman or not.
See, but I feel like people would take such an issue to why are you the sole person that gets to decide if everyone here becomes an Inhuman or not?
They have a teleporter and an immortal woman at the head of this group. They can just remove anyone who is against it. I don't know.
Wasn't that my argument of why she's evil? Because she would have just killed anyone who would rebel?
I didn't say kill, I said remove. Exiling from something that they granted them is not the same as killing them.
Uh-huh.
Maybe they test them before they're even accepted. I don't know. I just don't have enough here to make any conclusions. It's too vague. There's so much information we never got. They just wanted to make the drama with Sky getting powers before other people's bigger, but that whole subplot was never explored.
So your argument for why you like it and why you like Jiaying is that we didn't see enough of any of it.
My argument is, I like what I saw, and I'm not including information that I can't make conclusions about.
Okay. I feel like we're both using the same logic to argue our side.
I mean, essentially, we're just filling in the gaps for what we don't see, and you're filling them out as evil, and I'm just saying, I don't know, I don't care, I like what I saw.
Uh-huh. Okay, so I guess the reason they even mentioned the rules at all and why they need to keep her a secret is to give Jiaying an excuse to give the story of Bahrain, the only other time that the rules were broken and why it's bad.
I mean, the only times it comes up is to make it more suspenseful that Sky got the powers early, and Reyna. And yes, the cavalry story, I suppose.
Yeah, so then we find out that in the past, a woman had challenged Jiaying before because she wanted to put her child through Terrigenesis and give her her birthright, and Jiaying disagreed because she saw darkness in the child, and the woman just ended up stealing all the crystals and transforming her child anyway, and that's what led to Bahrain, which is when we get May's entire flashback scene of her story in Bahrain as well.
Yeah, though I don't remember. Did the mother have her powers first?
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure if the mother and the daughter both went through Terrigenesis, or just the mother got the crystals for the daughter.
The mother went through Terrigenesis and then wanted to give it to her daughter.
Okay, then yeah.
And then this little girl is... like, what a weird power. I'm so confused why this would be someone's power.
She mind controls people and steals their emotions? I'm confused.
It's not just that, it's that she must have people's pain. She likes people's pain, so touching them gives her their pain and then allows her to control them. It's very odd.
It's a little bit confusing what's going on. But yes, she controls them. So May has to kill her to save the lives of everyone else.
Yep, and we find out that Coulson did not know that happened.
Indeed. And it's extra dramatic because May was really wanting kids at that moment, and then she had to kill one.
Yep, and that ends up spiraling her marriage and her S.H.I.E.L.D. life out of control, so she ends up in the office and divorced.
Yeah. And it's kind of weird to think about the fact that May was working in the office for 7 years. Well, 6 years, I guess, before the show starts up and she becomes an agent again. It's a long time.
Has it been that long?
Yeah, I mean, the flashback said it was 7 years ago, and the show started 1 year ago. So it's been 6 years that she works as an office worker.
To be fair, I think they're classifying it 2 years ago at this point.
Are they? I don't know. But anyways, 5 or 6 years in the office is a ton.
There was one flashback that said 1 year ago, and it was between season 1 and 2. And I was like, okay, but that's a little skewed, but okay.
Oh yeah, you're right. I didn't think about that. When they begin the mysteries of Theta Protocol. That was a really funny way of them to make a tie-in to Age of Ultron. Like, Captain America Winter Soldier had such a huge impact on the show, and Avengers Age of Ultron barely touched it. It was basically just a mention, and that's just funny to me.
I have different feelings on it, so we should talk about that more when we get there.
Yes.
But then at the end of this episode, we see Jiaying basically asks Sky to dine with her father one night in order to repay him for fulfilling his promise and bringing her home. And then she says she'll send her father away forever.
Yes.
And this one night with her father gives her empathy and understanding of him, and she suddenly is happy with him.
And it confirms that Reyna's power is to see the future.
Correct.
Which makes her physical changes very strange. I like the idea that Gordon's power is he can't see anything, but he can see everything, kind of, and teleport. But Reyna is just Sonic the Hedgehog and sees the future. And it's weird. I'm just saying Sonic the Hedgehog because Sky makes a Sonic joke later, which I appreciated.
You appreciated that? I thought that was horrifying.
I like when they make video game jokes.
Yeah, but it was so harsh. I felt so bad for her.
Sky is not a fan of Reyna, I gotta say.
I'm just like, oh, that's painful. Anyways.
That about sums up the first episode, aside from Fitz also opening up the toolbox.
Yeah.
On to the next one! Where Fitz gets picked up by Coulson, and now he, Coulson, and Hunter need to meet Ward, so that they can find Sky through one of the heads of Hydra who has been tracking Gordon. Which is such a convoluted way to get Ward back in the story.
Yeah, and I really hate the way that they incorporated him because I just don't understand why they would trust him in the slightest. Because the deal he makes with Ward is literally, if you help us, I will wipe your memory and set you free. And Ward's like, I don't want that. And he's like, well, if you don't go along with it, then you won't be leaving. And I'm like, okay, so he doesn't even want what you're offering him, but you're going to give him a gun and let him follow you around? Like, I'm surprised Ward didn't just shoot him right then and there and walk away.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm also kind of surprised that Ward didn't pick up that he was on the run from the rest of S.H.I.E.L.D.
He kind of did. He knew something was wrong. He's like, why wasn't May there? Whatever.
Yeah, but I thought they would directly say something about it, and they didn't. And then by the time he would have said something, Coulson got back together with the rest of S.H.I.E.L.D., and it didn't matter anymore.
Yeah, and that's kind of my main gripe with all of this is what was the point of him running if the next thing he does is find S.H.I.E.L.D. heads and immediately turn himself in and say, we're friends now. And then on top of that, him supplying the helicarrier for Age of Ultron, which isn't even part of the show, is what makes the entire other S.H.I.E.L.D. decide that Coulson's actually a hero and he's a good guy and we actually shouldn't be questioning him at all. So, never mind to our entire arc because a movie happened.
I haven't thought about it that way. That's totally true. It's odd. And the only one that doesn't forgive him for it is May, which introduces this weird new layer of drama.
Yeah, it's really weird, and I'm just like, if you're gonna set up an arc for a show, you need to resolve it in the show and not make it be, oh, well, you're a hero now because of some movie that happened that you weren't even in.
Yeah. I'm also pretty confused about how he would wipe his memory with the Tahiti Project, because the Tahiti Project was destroyed. So I feel like this memory wiping technology is just some other S.H.I.E.L.D. technology, not actually Tahiti itself.
I completely agree, because the Tahiti Project was the alien blood resurrecting people part. It had nothing to do with the memory part. That was just a side effect.
Well, it wasn't a side effect. It was a method of stopping the side effects.
I mean, it wasn't the main purpose. It was just like a random side thing. So to say they're going to use the Tahiti Project to wipe people's memories, I'm like, do you guys even understand your own show?
Yeah, it's super confusing.
You're really not winning points with me right now.
Though it is interesting in these episodes how they use Bakshi and how he is really sketchy but also actually following orders properly.
Yeah. Which apparently Ward just orders him to take out Deathlock and continue acting on Hydra's part. Nah, whatever.
Loving the positivity, Trey.
I dislike this string of episodes, so I don't know what you want me to say.
Yeah, some of the plot arcs within these episodes are really weird, but it's a bummer that these episodes were so rushed because so many interesting things were played with. Like, I actually really like the stuff with Bakshi, and I really like Mike Peterson being around and cool again, and how Bakshi uses Mike Peterson as kind of bait makes perfect sense, and that was cool.
Yeah, I think they do some great groundwork in these episodes, but then they don't do anything with it, and they just, like, shove it all to the side to wrap everything up, and that's the main reason why I dislike it so much. That, and the fact that Jiaying really bothers me, which we'll get to when she shows her betrayal.
Yeah. This episode was also really interesting for watching Skye and Cal get to know each other and learning more about Cal's history, about how he was like an actually kind of well-off doctor who had his own building, and he was like a totally normal person and kind of admirable. Like, he used to do Doctors Without Borders, and that's how he even met Skye's mom. So it's really cool to get to know him in that regard.
For sure.
And another thing this episode does pretty well is the action. And like a lot of these episodes, it's kind of weird how it begins, but with Hydra versus the Inhumans versus Coulson and his group all in Cal's building, there was a lot of really cool action in this sequence. Like, we got to see Ward fight, we got to see Lincoln versus Mike Peterson, we got to see Skye and Gordon, lots of cool stuff.
Yeah.
And all in all, even though it's kind of weird how it all began, there was a lot of cool things here. Oh, really quick, I remember Mike Peterson mentions that he's Sky's ally, and Lincoln's like, oh yeah, sure, and I'm the Hulk. And that was funny, and I like when they reference the main heroes.
Yeah. Yeah, but then both him and Mike get taken by Hydra and are prisoners now.
Wah, wah, wah.
And Coulson turns himself in order to convince other S.H.I.E.L.D. to send his team in to rescue them. And then Sky wants to go save Lincoln, but Gordon's like, no, Jiaying said no. But because Reyna saw the future and saw Sky saving Lincoln, that is enough to convince Gordon to take her to S.H.I.E.L.D. to help.
Yeah, and I'm really surprised Gordon actually went along with it, because their, rule number 1 at the Afterlife is don't let anyone know, anything about the Inhumans. And then they pop straight in the S.H.I.E.L.D. Actually, I guess Gordon dropped her off nearby, but still, it's odd.
I mean, to be fair, he just left Sky there, so it's only what she tells them is what they would know, and she's already with them?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember, why did they not want to rescue Lincoln? What information does it reveal about the Inhumans to rescue him?
I think it was just because Gordon popped in and he got shot at and couldn't do it.
Oh, okay. One thing that was really weird about these episodes is the Hydra people that were investigating Lincoln and Mike Peterson were comparing them to each other and being like, oh, to understand their powers, we'll compare their DNA because one of them's artificial and one of them's a real mutated person. And the whole time I'm just like, why would you compare them at all? One of them is literally a cyborg. He has nothing special about him in his genes, just the parts that have been put in him. Why would you compare him to Lincoln? I don't understand.
It didn't make any sense. I didn't even bother trying to look into it.
It was just very dumb. But they do reference the twins in Sokovia.
Yes, they do, and they also reference Strucker, who's housing them there.
Indeed.
Even though the subtitles kept calling it Segovia.
Wait, really? Did it?
Yeah.
I wasn't watching with subtitles.
I always watch with subtitles.
It's really interesting in this episode how rescuing Lincoln and Mike Peterson was the binding force that brought Ward, Sky, and the whole team back together again, which led to a lot of really awkward, interesting interactions in the bus when they were on their way over to the Arctic Circle base where they were being contained. It was interesting. I actually really like all those interactions on the plane, and especially Simmons, who convinces herself that she's gonna kill Ward.
I don't love the whole Simmons killing Ward thing. I think it makes sense based on what he did to them, but also I feel like they give Simmons these questionable things a lot, where they're like, we're gonna have her do something evil to try and change things up, I guess, for her character.
Simmons is so aggressive this season. She just wants to kill everyone that's not a normal S.H.I.E.L.D. agent.
Yeah, and that's why it kind of bothers me.
I was bothered by her wanting to kill the Inhumans, but this one I was okay with.
It makes sense. I just don't like when they force aggressive things onto her, because I feel like it's not super in line with her character.
Yeah, totally not at all. But she does kill Bakshi.
Yes, she does.
No more Bakshi.
By accident, because she was aiming for Ward, and Ward's like, yo, what the heck, man? I thought we were working together.
But obviously, it's Ward, so it's so clear none of them would trust you. It's so funny that, on the bus, he's like, I know this is awkward, but, can't we just, do the mission? And everyone's just staring at him. And it's just like, what do you expect, man? You tried to kill half of them on several occasions.
Yep. But then he ends up leaving the team as they escape anyway.
Yes.
And in this scene, we see a lot of Sky using her powers, and she ends up pulsing Lincoln's heart back to life to resuscitate him.
Yeah, I kind of am amused by the person with the electric powers, who should be the one that has to restart someone's heart, actually gets his heart restarted by the person with the vibration powers. I mean, it makes sense. I just would always assume, oh, it's Lincoln. He's totally going to save someone with his powers.
Yeah. Though you also see his, electric pulse while she quakes him, which is did he start his own heart after she quaked him?
Maybe. Maybe subconsciously?
Sure.
His powers are cool. I wish I had electric powers.
Yeah, but then at the end of the episode, we also get, Gonzalez talking about how they need to hold Skye and the Enhanced to learn about the others, but we never actually see anything happen with that.
Yeah. And we also see Raina weirdly foreseeing all of the events of Age of Ultron, and it's just odd.
Way to put in a trailer, guys.
I mean, it was a short little thing, so I think it's okay. But it was just awkwardly done.
It was. And pretty much the entire end of this episode is like, Coulson unlocks his toolbox and gives it to Gonzalez, and then he's like, until Fury shows up and asks for it back, and then he goes and talks to Maria Hill about Loki's scepter and how that's what he was looking for, and...
Oh yeah, and he makes a joke about, spoilers.
Yeah, and Theta Protocol was only to build helicarriers, which I'm really confused why he was traveling all over the world if he was building one helicarrier in one place.
I don't think it was building one helicarrier. It was refurbishing the old helicarrier from Avengers 1.
Okay, refurbishing. Why is he traveling all over the world when the helicarrier is in one place?
Yeah, I don't know. It's very confusing, except for the fact that I guess it's manned by hundreds of people?
Like, is that what all the bunkers and all the different places were for? The hundreds of people coming to work on the helicarrier?
I don't know.
I don't know what the writers were doing in this season. Like, all these little details that they were building up that they just didn't deal with.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Yeah, and then the last thing at this episode, which, honestly, the whole Jiaying thing, I feel like it was littered throughout all of her appearances that there's definitely something dark lurking in her and something off about her. Like, for instance, Jiaying goes to Raina and she says, all decisions made from your gift go through me now. And it's like, you can just tell she has a very controlling complex and she has to be in charge of everything in this place. And honestly, it really bothers me. Her character really bothers me.
I mean, sure, except for the fact that Raina is known to be super manipulative and was causing havoc already. She wasn't necessarily causing a good revolution or something. She was, like, causing havoc. Having the ability to see the future is dangerous.
She wasn't causing havoc. She just said that Skye would rescue Lincoln and convince Gordon to take her, which ended up happening. And if Jiaying was there, that wouldn't have happened.
I mean, they also showed Raina gathering with other Inhumans and telling them things and being a little conniving. I think distrusting Raina and limit who knows about what she foresees and what to do about it is actually reasonable. I don't see that as evil.
Okay, what are you even talking about Raina doing that was conniving? All she did was tell people, oh yeah, your son is going to get a great power, it's beautiful, and like, calm people. I didn't see anything conniving about what she was doing.
She was, like, trying to gain the favor of people in order to gain power in their establishment, but also doing it without, like, actually becoming a member of this community. Because she is a character that we've already known as a conniving villain, anything she does of that nature, I see as, oh, she's probably up to no good. We should watch her. We should stop her.
And I see that later, like in the next episodes when she's like, oh, have me talk to them and stuff like that. But everything before that,
It's Raina, though.
But Jiaying is worse.
I mean, they're both dead now, so does it matter?
Yes.
Oh, okay. My bad.
I just think the Jiaying twist, I think it was so obvious, and that's what makes me hate it. Because, like, this is Skye's mom, and you can tell there's something off about her from the start, so actually making her be evil in the end, and not just, like, a human with more empathy and understanding, like, I don't think she's gray. I think they just make her black and white, and all she sees is black and white. And I don't find her compelling because of that. And I think the twist is not a good twist because it was so obvious all along.
I think this is the first episode that you could say it's obvious. And this is one of those things that I can't remember what I thought originally. So with hindsight, I already knew she was evil, so things stood out to me more.
Okay, let me point out the things that made me go, clearly she's evil. Before now. Or clearly there's something off about her. When she's talking to Cal, there's a really devious air to everything she's saying, like hidden underneath. And I get the feeling that she's willing to just, when she's talking about taking him away forever, she's willing to kill him. And I'm not sure that she wouldn't have if Skye didn't go along for the ride. When she's talking to Reyna about controlling everything, when she's talking to Sky about how no one can know the secrets and her rules are very important. All of these things, I'm like, you're clearly evil.
Okay, with Cal and Reyna, because they were both introduced as villains, it's hard for me to see characters going against the villains as clearly evil.
No. Cal, in the context of Jiaying, he's her former lover. He's trying to put his family back together. He's like...
He's also a madman that you can't trust.
But not to Jiaying. Jiaying is like, this is the man I love. This is the man who's doing everything he can to put our family together, who loves me, who loves her. I don't want him to stay here. I'm gonna go and kill him now. I don't think that makes her a good person.
I mean, I could see it as... This is her lover from 20 years ago who has been going crazy and has been on murder sprees and is announcing to the world about my people who need to be hidden. I need to put him down. I don't see that as pure evil. I see that as willing to do bad things for the greater good. I think that's more morally gray than pure evil is all I'm saying.
I think the best solution for everyone involved that would keep everyone safe would be leaving him there, but she wasn't willing to do that because of the politics.
But we don't know anything about the politics because it was all rushed, so
Exactly.
I don't want to judge it because it was all rushed.
I am judging it because it was all rushed. They did a bad job.
No, I mean, I'm not... Okay, I will judge the quality of the show, but I don't want to make judgments about politics stuff because we don't know anything about the politics stuff. I can say, I'm annoyed we didn't get to see more about the politics, but I don't want to say, I'm annoyed because Cal had to be kicked out because of Jiaying's politics or whatever, because we don't know anything about Jiaying's politics. They seem to work pretty well. Everyone seemed pretty happy there, aside from the fact that not everyone got to go through their transition. But we don't know why that ever was a thing, because clearly by the end of this season, we know they're not limited in Terrigen crystals. And also, she was being like, all right, we'll kill you unless you become an Inhuman. So we don't really know what the hell was going on with the limitations of Inhuman powers.
Okay.
Shall we go to the next episode?
Clearly we disagree, so I think we should move on.
Fair enough. And the next episode begins with really rushing through the Age of Ultron stuff and, oh, Theta Protocol was just the helicarrier. And now, like we just said, everyone's pretty much cool with Coulson now, except for Mac and Melinda May.
And he's literally cool enough to the point where Coulson's like, so I'm gonna be director and I'll just take your guys' advice. Cool?
Yeah. It's like what we talked about in the previous group of S.H.I.E.L.D. episodes, where fundamentally other S.H.I.E.L.D. seems to be in the right, but the show displays them as corrupt and weird and that you don't want to agree with them. But Coulson clearly is in the wrong, but you like Coulson, so you want to go with whatever he says.
Yeah, and I'm still really confused why they would go along with this if their principles are democracy, and just because he did one good thing that helped save the day doesn't mean that S.H.I.E.L.D. shouldn't still be democratic based on their principles. It's like, Fury did a ton of good things, and they're like, well, the reason S.H.I.E.L.D. fell is because he kept all the secrets and was one ruler. It should be a democracy. But now they just changed their whole tune and are like, okay, fine, you can be ruler.
Yeah, and it's also extra weird that they don't really acknowledge the fact that Fury is still alive and giving Coulson orders, even though he's head of S.H.I.E.L.D. That seems important.
Yeah, kinda.
They just kind of go right past it.
Yep.
Fury clearly is still in charge, even if very indirectly.
I mean, technically not, because he gave the reins to Coulson, but Coulson's still going to listen to him when necessary, so...
Yeah, so, I mean, Coulson's like the manager, and Fury's the owner, who just steps in every now and then.
Yeah.
So he's still, like, in command. He's just not very actively in command.
Well, I think that's the point.
He has authority over Coulson, which is what I'm trying to say. Because Coulson will still do anything he says. Although Coulson runs S.H.I.E.L.D., Fury has the last say.
So what?
That's all. Where do they get the money for all of this anyways, now that they're this illegal organization that the government doesn't trust?
I don't know.
They do seem super corrupt and evil, and the government shouldn't trust them. How do you get this much money and have, like, super crazy jets flying all around the world that you stole from the U.S. government, by the way? Like, all of this is crazy.
Yep. But Moving on, Reyna has a vision of the stone that turns to liquid and back, which Jiaying and Gordon are like, oh my gosh, this is Kree. It was created by them to destroy our people. So they get really, worried about it and send their people after it. But if you've actually seen later S.H.I.E.L.D. and what this stone does, none of this makes any sense.
Oh no, not at all. I mean, in the end of the season, they show the stone eating Simmons. So what were they going to do? Just force all the Inhumans into it or something? Is that what they thought it was for?
Yeah. It's not good.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to throw people into a thing to kill them all, you might as well just throw them into a volcano. It's much more dramatic.
It's just very oddly specific to say they created this to destroy Inhumans, but in reality, the stone's power has nothing to do with Inhumans.
I feel like the writers of S.H.I.E.L.D. really overestimate how much people care about the Kree, because, they keep mentioning, oh, the Kree made this thing to destroy us, or, they had that Kree guy come in earlier in the season to kill Inhumans or something, and I'm like, I don't care about anything about the Kree. Can we just not worry about them and just be here?
I care about the Kree. I mean, when they make it important to the lore, then it's important to the lore. But the problem is they don't keep their details straight and it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's all. I guess I would care more if I knew that stone actually was something important that the Kree made to kill the Inhumans, but it's not.
Yeah. So I guess we're just ignoring that and moving on.
Gobbler of Simmons, the stone.
Yep. But because S.H.I.E.L.D. has the stone, Jiaying and Gordon are super paranoid about S.H.I.E.L.D. because it'll clearly kill them.
Clearly. Which is so weird because all of this was entirely unnecessary because they already had the entire plot point of S.H.I.E.L.D. knows where they are now and wants to put them all on the index and stuff like that. S.H.I.E.L.D. was already going to come up to the afterlife. Why did they introduce the stone?
For the next season, where they were going to make it something completely different than what they introduced it as?
I suppose. It just is entirely unnecessary, except for the cliffhanger at the end of Simmons getting eaten or whatever by it.
Yeah, I agree. Don't you guys love when we tear apart the show?
I feel so bad for shitting on it so much right now, because, there's a lot here that I actually really enjoyed. But there's so many just weird things that don't make sense in these episodes, and most of it is just because of how rushed everything is. Yeah. So much happens in so little time, and they clearly did not have room for it.
Yep.
In this group of episodes, these last 3 episodes, Mac decides he doesn't trust Coulson, which has been hinted at this entire season, la-di-da, and he decides to quit S.H.I.E.L.D. And by the end of these 3 episodes, he's still in S.H.I.E.L.D. Why even bother with that little plot point just to put him on the battleship?
I completely agree. And him quitting S.H.I.E.L.D. simply because Coulson has some alien blood felt really closed-minded to me. And I really hate that line of reasoning. But then because Coulson was apparently able to convince him to stay, even though we don't see it at all, I'm like, okay, so now he's more open-minded, whatever. Whatever. Okay.
Mac cuts off Coulson's arms, and now he owes him a debt and stays at S.H.I.E.L.D.
Apparently.
Yeah.
But S.H.I.E.L.D. tracks Gordon's signature to his location, and they find out where Afterlife is. And Skye goes and talks to them first to convince them to let S.H.I.E.L.D. come in and sit down with them. And we do get a little bit of explanation about Gordon's powers, but all they say is that he can sense people because quantum entanglement.
Also, it sounds like he could sense just Kree DNA and Kree technology. So I feel like he's the Professor X of the Inhumans, where he could detect if anyone has Inhuman genes in them, and he could somehow detect the strange artifact in the battleship. How did Gordon know the details about how it looked, also? What was this? They never explained.
I think they said it was a legend passed down since the beginning.
Okay. Of the rock that can turn into the sea, as Reyna described it.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, okay. That makes way more sense. But does that mean Gordon is oh, that's actually a thing that we have to worry about, and he just thinks about it for a second and just magically knows where it is? Could he not have just been oh, I wonder if that's a thing, and search it out anyways?
I don't know. You're asking for more details than the show gives.
Yeah. Well, anyways, it's kind of interesting how Reyna's visions come into play in this episode, because first they find out about the artifact because of Reyna, and then it seems like Gordon's following for Reyna's tricks, kind of, where Reyna warns him that S.H.I.E.L.D. is going to come to the afterlife, and she tells him, like, you can't let Jiaying be the one who talks to S.H.I.E.L.D., and at first it seems like he's going along, but then by the end of the episode, you realize, oh, not only is he just tricking Reyna, he is totally on Jiaying's side and, like, kills a few S.H.I.E.L.D. agents in order to take over Quinjet to attack the afterlife, and it's a crazy big deal. Or actually, that was the very beginning of the next episode, I think. But still, it's interesting that they feign that Gordon is falling for Reyna's tricks, but not really.
I'm actually really upset about this, and I was upset about this the first time too, because Gordon seems like such a genuinely cool character and a good person, but then I don't know why he blindly follows Jiaying into this, aside from the fact that she's the leader. Like, there's so much manipulation and murderous, cold-hearted stuff going on here, and I'm like, Gordon, you seem like such a better character than this, and it really bothers me that you're completely in on it.
Well, that's why, to be honest, I felt like the Jiaying stuff was super rushed also. Like, it just seemed like all these things happened so fast, and I wish we could have had more time to develop why does Gordon want to follow her everywhere? Why is Jiaying so bloodthirsty? Why does she hate S.H.I.E.L.D. as much as she does?
Yeah, but I would have preferred that he not be on Jiaying's side, or that he be duped with the rest of them so that he could still be here after this.
Yeah, so would I. Gordon is such a cool character, but to be fair, having a teleporter is really dangerous. Same thing with Reyna, having the ability to see the future. That's really dangerous. So killing off both of them was probably a good idea.
No, they were so cool in this season. I would have loved to get more of them.
I agree, but it makes the show so much harder to write.
Maybe they should just be better at writing.
Maybe. But it's also just really interesting because we have now seen evidence that Reyna's visions come true. And Reyna witnesses the destruction of the afterlife. And Gordon's like, oh, okay, I still trust Jiaying.
Well, Gordon was part of the destruction of the afterlife.
Yeah, I guess it's true. It's just kind of weird because you would think they would try to prioritize saving their people a little more. It reminds me of whatever that folklore legend is. I can't remember who it is. It's like in ancient Greek or Roman times where someone was granted the ability to see the future, but no one would ever believe them. And it kind of reminded me of that legend where Reyna could see the future and she could see like the worst things that were going to happen and tried to warn everyone, but just no one would ever listen.
Yeah.
Including Skye.
I mean, she definitely came on a little too strong though in this case when she's like, our leader meeting with them is what causes the badness. I'm the one that should meet with them.
Yeah, I don't know why the hell anyone ever would go ahead with Reyna meeting up with them. She's only been here for like a week. They hardly know her.
That, and she's like an enemy of S.H.I.E.L.D., so that's like the worst idea.
Yeah, you know who should do it? Skye. Well, Skye and Gordon together, or something like that.
Sure.
Skye should have been in the room.
Sure. Yeah.
But instead, we get Gonzalez and Jiaying being introduced. And it's really interesting. This is kind of like what they did with Agent Hand last season, where they tried to make her seem extra devious, but it turned out she was a really good agent. Gonzalez was introduced in this episode as having some like secret backup plan in case something horrible goes wrong with the Inhumans, because he was really nervous that this wasn't going to go well. And when we actually have Gonzalez and Jiaying meeting, it's actually this like lucky charm that they found that Jiaying was going to give the Skye when she was a baby. And it's like such a beautiful, kind gesture. And it's like, why do they keep making these characters that are actually good, make us feel like there's something evil about them, make them be revealed to be purely good at the end, and then kill them? They did the same thing with Hand last season.
Yep.
Like, when Gonzalez gave Jiaying the charm was when I liked him the most. And then he immediately got killed by her.
Also, would Jiaying have killed Coulson?
Probably.
Because Skye would never believe her.
That's a good point. I don't know. It's kind of strange. I feel like this wasn't entirely orchestrated to begin with, and Jiaying just got so enraged by the fact that Gonzalez compared his, like, limp leg to her face scars and everything. Like, that's why this episode is called Scars. She is absolutely infuriated that he would compare his injured leg to the fact that she was ripped apart, her organs put in jars. She is just freaking out about this. Honestly, if it was Coulson, I don't think that would have happened. I don't know if any of this would have happened. It might have actually gone well.
I disagree that that's what set her off. I think that the turning point was when he said he wanted to put them on an index, because she was profiling people who are different is never good. And that was my opinion of why she killed him, because she's like, no, my people aren't going on your index, and Coulson would have wanted them on the index. So
yeah, that's the thing too. Before this, Coulson 100% wanted them on the index. After all this, in the end of the season, he agrees to not put Inhumans on the index for no real reason other than the fact that Skye is against it.
Did he agree to that?
Yeah, at the very end of the season, it sounded like he agreed not to put Inhumans on the index.
Did they actually talk about it, though? I mean, they talked about, like, Skye being the only person on her team, or in the enhanced list.
I can't remember all the details, but it seemed like they weren't gonna do the index as much anymore, or something. Which doesn't even make sense, because the index actually is kind of a reasonable thing, because they are superpowered people in a scary world, and you want to know who they are.
Yeah.
You don't need a blood sample, just, like, have their name and their power. Like, that should be enough.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, I see your point that the index part is what sets off Jiaying more, but that's also kind of reasonable because the index is kind of awful.
Yeah.
Which is part of why I don't see her as that awful until really these last 2 episodes. The last 3, but mostly the finale 2. SOS parts 1 and 2.
You didn't think her murdering Gonzalez and pretending that he shot her and to rally the whole team behind a war?
Well, that was the beginning, and it was only like the last 5 minutes of the last episode. That's why the next 2, when she's full on evil, when she even tries to steal her own daughter's life, when it's like, okay, suddenly she's full evil. That's why to me it felt rushed and kind of out of nowhere. The fact that she would try to kill Skye is ridiculous.
Yeah, and okay. I want to talk about Jiaying's initial betrayal and the fact that the entire orchestration only happened in order to get her daughter on her side. Because her initial reaction to S.H.I.E.L.D. coming was, okay, we need to evacuate and find a new place for Afterlife and all the Inhumans.
Yeah.
And Skye was like, no, you need to meet with them, please, like, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, okay. And then they meet, she kills him. She gets the entire group of humans on her side for a war and then decides to kill S.H.I.E.L.D. all to get Skye on her side against S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, it's odd and weird and convoluted and rushed. And I just really wish this whole arc was longer.
But then when she follows that up with having her own team go into a S.H.I.E.L.D. plane and attack themselves and just playing up like to Skye, oh my gosh, how dare you do this? How could you bring them here? Characters like that manipulate to that extent really bother me.
Oh yeah, I mean, at that point, he was full on evil, crazy, the monster that we see Coulson call her in the next episode.
Yeah, but that's what I dislike most about her.
Yeah, and that characteristic makes her a good villain. But to me, it didn't feel like they were building to that kind of character, and it felt rushed and weird when they did it, which is why I wish Jiaying got more screen time.
I think I actually agree with you, because all the things that I was mentioning before that showed like something a little off about her, like I thought they were building to more complexity and like I think a grayer villain who does bad and good things, but instead we got like immediate, well, I'm evil, I'm obvious evil now, and it was like, this is so bad.
Exactly. You cleared up my thoughts so much. She is a woman who has been literally ripped apart by normal humans, even if they were the worst of the worst people ever. Her rage is understandable, but still, she has taken all of that, put it to the side, and raised a community of people that see her as a leader and trust her. And she helps raise people, vulnerable people, like Gordon when he was first learning his powers, and Skye when she didn't understand her powers. And to flip this character that, like, had a lot of positives about her to pure evil just sucked.
Yeah.
She seemed so much more complex and interesting, which is why I like her as a concept, but especially in these last 3 episodes, it just went downhill fast.
Indeed.
But yeah, in these episodes, we finally see what Jiaying's real power is, which is stealing life, which is a really interesting concept because sure, it seems pure evil, but like Hal was saying, she used to plead people not to force her to use it, but they were using her as a beacon of all of their culture and knowledge so that she would live on to pass this knowledge down to generation. So that seems like such a gray use of such a dark power, and I like that. But in the finale, it's crazy, and she tries to kill Skye, and it's nuts.
To be honest, it really made me curious how she even discovered the power.
There's a lot of characters in a lot of shows that confuse me about this, like how they discover the power to begin with.
Yeah, because she had to be on the edge of death and suck the life out of someone accidentally, in theory, if she was against it.
Well, that's the thing. I don't know if she needs to be on the edge of death to do it, because she wasn't on the edge of death with Skye. Also, is Skye's life now reduced?
So you think she could have just started sucking someone's life accidentally and realized, I have this power of sucking life?
Probably. In other fiction I've seen, when a character has a power like this, they usually killed someone on accident as a child. They usually killed one of their parents. And that's a, like, dark, tragic backstory, and usually they're a villain.
Yeah.
So, seeing a character that could have been morally gray with a power like this could have been really cool, and then it wasn't.
Yeah, and about the, is Skye's life reduced now? I thought that same thing, and I was like, if this was reality, her life would probably have years taken off of it, but since this is TV, it won't.
Yeah. But, like, is Jiaying's power an all or nothing kind of thing? Like, is she stealing your life force, or is she, like, stealing your soul and getting all of your life at once? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But we also get Jiaying killing Reina in this episode, which I have so many questions about this scene. Just like, she comes to Jiaying, she tells her everything about the future, and she realizes that she's actually not a monster, but an angel sent here to guide them on the right path and reveal the truth. And, like, she's seen the entire future. She knows that she's about to die. She tells Skye that they'll never speak again.
Yeah.
And she still just flat out is like, Jiaying, I'm gonna tell everyone your secret. And I'm like, why? Like, unless you still want to die, why are you telling her this?
Also, everyone has already evacuated, but it also kind of does work because her being killed by Jiaying, which is seen by Skye, which is then spread to other Inhumans, most notably, well, really only Lincoln. So she kind of did spread the word that Jiaying was evil.
No, she did. And if this was any other character who maybe was, like, selfless enough to be like, oh, this is the only way to show the truth is to sacrifice my life to show one person, Skye, that she's evil, then I'll do it. But I just don't really buy that Reina would do that.
Yeah, it's odd. Maybe she had some weird deluded idea in her mind because she's an angel and she thought angels are sacrificial. I don't know. I'm not Christian, so I don't really know much lore about angels. But aren't they immortal? So I don't know.
I don't know. I just think it's out of character for her, but whatever. I guess she was willing to die to show Skye the truth.
Well, it's one of those things where it's like, also, now that she's seen the future, can she change it? You would think yes, but maybe she can't. Or maybe she deludes herself that she can't, so she just acts it out again anyways.
Who knows?
It's odd. But then Skye sees and understands the truth that Jiaying is evil.
Yep.
And pretty much the next time we see the Inhumans is once they're raiding the battleship for the artifact. Which, why did they bring Skye along?
I said the exact same thing.
Yeah, and not only why did they bring her along, how did they have those gauntlets that stop her powers entirely? Were those the ones that Simmons made?
No, Simmons made, like, gloves. She didn't make random spinny metal things.
Oh, yeah. So what were those things that stopped her powers?
Clearly things that they had.
Magic.
I guess they have technological geniuses like Fitz in the Inhumans staff.
It seems like, yeah, they might. I don't know. We don't meet any of them.
Yep.
We just meet the girl that duplicates herself. And I really like that they show off her and I have a whole scene devoted to showing off her cool power. And then, actually, I think they have two, because they have one of her fighting a whole bunch of people as duplicates. Then we have a scene of Skye attacking tons of them at once. And there's a lot of cool scenes with Gordon in these 2 episodes fighting. But there's some other Inhuman guy that they never show what his power is.
Honestly, I'm surprised they only use 2 Inhumans.
Yeah.
Like, you have a whole community that you're trying to get on your side for this war, but you only use 2 Inhumans to take over the entire battleship.
I mean, they used 4 if you include Jiaying and Lincoln.
I don't, because Jiaying didn't really do anything.
And Lincoln got converted really fast.
Yep.
Which is good, because he's not an idiot.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It was odd.
Yeah. One thing that was odd that is like so much about this was happening. But meanwhile, we had a whole other subplot about Bobby Ward and Agent 33.
Let's talk about that when we're done with this.
Yeah, we will. But I just wanted to mention, it's so weird that this was being interspliced within this whole other really complex situation at the same time. It's like, we don't have time for this. What are you guys doing?
Yeah. I guess they were really worried about amping up the drama of the situation and keeping as many complex threads as possible, even though they were not exploring half of the things they set up.
Yeah. And like they had the whole situation with Cal back at S.H.I.E.L.D., who was kind of set there as a trap to go crazy rage powers and kill as many S.H.I.E.L.D. agents as he could. But even once he had the epinephrine or whatever in his system and his powers were working well, he didn't do very much damage in S.H.I.E.L.D. And then Coulson stopped him single-handedly with a car.
Yes.
He just didn't seem all that threatening. But it was pretty interesting how Coulson actually got him to realize who the villain was and that he's actually not as much of a monster as Jiaying. That was intriguing. I don't really agree with it because he's also a monster, but I like that he actually does come to the realization that Jiaying is clearly manipulating him and not good.
I agree. Another point I wanted to touch on with regard to the duplicating girl is that I find it interesting that she manages, like, so her power is just being in multiple places at once, right? And
Yeah.
just because she's good at fighting, she manages to take over the ship with that.
Which is reasonable. If you can make tons and tons and tons of copies of yourself and you're a really powerful fighter, you could do a ton.
But, I mean, as far as we see her make about 5 copies of herself. She beats all of the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents on this ship in combat, and then all 5 of her take on Skye, and Skye manages to keep them all at bay.
Without the powers.
Yeah, and I'm like, how? There's no way.
I mean, this is just an issue with all shows of this entire genre, that the main characters are the only ones that are competent in fighting at all.
Yeah, I just have a really hard time with them making this one girl who can just have multiple copies of herself, like, enough power to take over this entire ship.
I agree, especially because Skye had only been training for like a year and a half, and these other guys seem to be seasoned S.H.I.E.L.D. veterans with guns.
Yep.
It was also interesting that the defeated bodies didn't seem to disappear, they just seemed to, like, collapse. So, does she just leave corpses around?
I think they all just reabsorb into her.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right. But it's also funny because, like, she appears to have some kind of hive mind setup where, like, she knows where all of the different versions of her are, because she mentions knowing where one of the other ones is. But then you see a bunch of different clips of her, like, nodding to the other versions of herself, which seems very weird if they're all one person.
Yeah, I know. I thought the same thing.
It's just so weird. Like, you're one person. What are you doing? Are you just trying to be funny to all the other people around?
Yep. Yeah, so Skye sends a message to Coulson that everything's a trap, and he orders all other forces to fall back except his own team.
Yeah, which, okay, sure, that whole subplot was odd and not necessary.
Yeah, and also Coulson really likes putting his own team in danger.
I mean, he had Cal, but yeah.
Yeah, and also his team is, like, clearly just the best.
They're the protagonists. They're the only ones that can do anything.
Yep. We don't need hundreds of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. We're fine with our 4.
I do like the fight of Fitz, Mac, and Coulson all against Gordon once Fitz uses the technology to stop Gordon from teleporting. But I have 2 big issues with that. 1, the door was open. Gordon could have freaking walked out. Even with 3 people versus 1 teleporter, even if the teleporter is limited to 1 room, I think the teleporter should still win. But the fact that the door was open was ridiculous.
I guess I didn't notice that the door was open.
Yeah, and it's also kind of funny that the way that the fight gets resolved is Gordon accidentally teleporting into Fitz's weapon, which is just a metal pole. It's kind of anticlimactic.
It was really stupid. I'm like, you have a sense of everything around you, but you're gonna teleport around his weapon, and that's what kills you?
Yeah, it's a bit disappointing, but it was interesting that, like, he dropped the crystal, and then Coulson goes to grab it, and then at first you're like, oh, he's okay. Maybe it's because he's an Inhuman or had the Inhuman blood transferred into him. And then he starts to turn to stone, and you're like, uh-oh. And then out of freaking nowhere, Mac just slams his arm off, and you're just like, what? Holy shit, that's so dark for this show.
Yeah.
Like, out of nowhere, just slam, cut the commercial. Like, holy shit.
Yep.
It's intense.
And it's also a nod to Phase 2 movies where they all cut arms off.
Yep. It's kind of funny, like, just how brutal it is in the middle of the rest of this kind of just silly comical show. Just, bam, brutal.
For sure. And we also see, like, apparently there was a bunch of other crystals that Jiaying was putting on a jet to send somewhere else, and Sky manages to push the jet off with her powers, and it falls into the ocean, so all those crystals, like, disintegrate into the fish, and then it eventually, at the end of the episode, you get shown that it's in, like, the fish and the fish oil.
Yeah, which opens up a whole other new can of worms for next season.
Yep. And then Jiaying starts sucking Sky's life out, and Cal comes out and is like, no, you don't. I kill you instead.
At first he snaps her neck, which makes sense, but then he, like, lifts her up and, like, pushes her spine forward? Does he break her neck again? Like, I don't actually know what he did right then.
I don't know, but she's been dead before, and I don't really know how he got her to suck life while dead, and what's the different about this time.
I don't know. It could be like Claire from Heroes, where, like, her healing is almost always on, but, like, if you stab her in the brain or things like that, it turns off. So, like, if you get her to a state where her body would ordinarily be healthy, she starts healing again? I don't know. Whitehall was trying to keep her alive while doing those horrible things so he could keep her experiment ready. So I don't know, man. It's weird.
Well, she also had all of her, like, organs taken out.
But, like, wouldn't she regrow them? I don't know what the limits of her power are.
I don't know, but if she can regrow them, then what's to stop her just regrowing her bones?
Exactly. Yeah, it's confusing.
Yes. I'm honestly very surprised that she never came back.
Yet.
True, I guess, but...
It's always possible.
Well, I don't think it is anymore.
There's always some way they could reintroduce her. It's a world with superpowers. Literally, there is always a way. I don't think they will, but maybe. But yeah, shall we get to the whole Bobby subplot?
Yes, we should.
Yeah, so Ward and Agent 33 capture Bobby and then torture her because Bobby made a call that led to Agent 33 being captured and thus brainwashed by Bakshi, which led to her life being hell the past few years or year, I don't know. Which is interesting, and it's also especially interesting that Bobby very strongly says she would do the same thing again. But it's just kind of out of place because it's happening during the finale when we have this whole other big arc finishing.
Yeah, and also, like, I get that her call hurt her, But also, she made the call to save dozens of other S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, and Kara is still just like, well, I'm gonna torture you because it still hurt me. And I'm like, so basically, you're just a self-centered person who doesn't even care that she just saved a bunch of other people in your place.
To be honest, I'm more confused why Bobby isn't a little bit more remorseful, maybe like trying to console her at all in another way. I don't know. Like, I guess in the context, it makes no sense for her to do that, but like, she seems like she's being overly harsh about the situation.
She could definitely show more empathy, like...
Yeah, that's the word.
I'm sorry I had to give away your life, but also it was the right call because I saved all these other people.
Yeah, and it wasn't like she purposefully was like, oh, here, Hydra, take this agent. She was like, here, Hydra, here's some information about a safe house where hopefully no one is. Please say no one is. And there was someone there. And it sucks, but it was like a kind of safe call and the kind of the best thing she could have done in that situation.
Yeah, and I really love Bobby confronting Ward about it, because Ward's like, own up to it, you betrayed her. And she's like, are you fucking kidding me? You betrayed your entire team.
You literally betrayed everyone you've ever worked with.
And then she gets out of her restraints and attacks him, and she's totally destroying him. And I'm like,
yeah,
this is fantastic. And then, of course, Kara comes and she has to fight them both off, and she's doing a great job, but naturally with both of them, she eventually loses.
Yeah.
But that was a great fight, and I'm like, Bobby, you just won like 1,000,000 points from me.
Yeah. Like, we have all these fights with powers going on, but this was clearly the best fight of the finale, I think.
Yeah. There's also like way too much buildup for the rest of the team that's going with Hunter to rescue her, because May's like, I'm gonna come and give Ward what's coming to him. And she just keeps saying stuff like that, like he's gonna die. And then they never even see each other. And
oh yeah, not at all.
He just gets away, and it's like, okay, why did we talk this up?
Yeah, they save Bobby and then they never see Ward.
Yep.
We just have them disappear, go back to S.H.I.E.L.D., which is super weird. Also, since they knew that Agent 33 was there, why would they send in May when May is one of the only people that 33 can turn into? Sure, it led to the super cool dramatic scene of Ward accidentally killing 33, who was disguised as May, but it also led to a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent getting killed by 33. Like, clearly, May should not have been on this mission.
Yeah, and I think the only reason she was is because of that.
Yeah, because of the dramatic scene with Ward killing 33, which I forgot about. And I remember thinking then and thinking now, that's such a cool way to do it. Except for the fact that it makes no sense for May to be there.
Oh my gosh, I freaking laughed out loud. I was like, sweet vengeance.
Which is weird because this entire arc with Ward and 33 has been setting up that Ward probably is just manipulating her like he was manipulated. And instead of going deeper into that, we just have Ward actually kill her, actually be sad about it, and actually flip out and be like, okay, going back to Hydra and I'm going to be the new leader now.
Yeah, but also him becoming the new Hydra lead to get closure on Kara, which seems to suggest going after S.H.I.E.L.D., is honestly ridiculous because he's the one that killed her.
Yeah. It's very odd.
It's very shoehorned in, and I'm like, this is just a way to keep Ward in the plot and as a villain to S.H.I.E.L.D. because it's all his fault again.
Yeah. I'm also kind of intrigued by the fact that it's all his fault again, just like last season where Fitz got injured to near death and has to recuperate all season. This season, we have Bobby injured to near death and has to recuperate again with her damaged leg and being shot in the shoulder, maybe near her heart. And it's like, do we need to do this again? Especially now that we've seen Fitz, who's 100% back to normal again. So clearly Bobby is going to be 100% back to normal again.
Yeah, but we don't even see her heal after this, do we? Isn't it just she's fine?
I don't remember where she is at the beginning of the next season, but I think she still has to recuperate. And that's one of the arcs that she goes through, is getting back to normal again.
Okay, because, well, first we should mention why she's injured, and it's because there was a shotgun rigged to the door for Hunter to get hurt when he comes in, and she leans in front of the shotgun and gets shot in the back of the head.
I don't think it was a shotgun, but yeah. No, it wasn't the back of the head, it was her shoulder. Or maybe, like, near her heart.
If it was near her heart, that would make a lot more sense. but from my viewing, it looked like her head. I was like, how the heck did she survive a shot to the head?
Yeah, that would be way worse.
But wasn't her head all bandaged?
I don't remember. She was all injured and, like, bruised, but I don't think bandaged.
I'm questioning this, but if it wasn't her head, that would be a lot better.
Yeah.
Also, at the end of the episode, we get that apparently May and Andrew are going to go away together now. And, like, I guess it's her final healing from Bahrain. She's ready to move on.
But is she really? Because she does bring a gun.
So, she's a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent.
Yeah, but I mean, like, the whole thing is, like, she's still not 100% able to relax anymore. She's permanently not comfortable. Especially, it's also weird because Andrew also has a girlfriend and or wife. I don't remember who she is now. So, what are they doing?
Does he?
Didn't they reveal that early in the season?
I think they did talk about a girl, but I think at the time I remembered him and May striking up a flame, and I just assumed that he was lying. Or like it wasn't actually his girlfriend or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
We also get Fitz and Simmons in their flame igniting, because just like last season when Fitz admits that he loves her, Simmons this season's like, maybe we should totally date and stuff before getting swallowed by a giant rock.
That made me so angry.
Wait, what part about it? Just the fact that she got sucked into the rock, or the fact that, like, right when they're actually about to start Fitzsimmons, she gets sucked into a rock?
They spent an entire season apart and, like, just ruining Fitzsimmons, and at the very end, they decide, oh, okay, well, actually, I decide that I'm gonna tell you I love you, but, just to make it more dramatic, instead of that actually happening, I'm gonna get sucked into a rock for another season.
I mean, they've been building up to it ever since New Shield invaded, with, like, them finally bonding again and working together to steal the toolbox, and like her giving him the sandwich and la-di-da. But yeah, putting her in the rock as soon as they're actually about to date, when they're like the most popular ship in all of S.H.I.E.L.D., is just upsetting. They're so cute.
It makes me so mad.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, we get Cal getting his memory wiped by, again, the Tahiti Project.
Which, again, doesn't make sense, but anyways.
Yeah, and then he goes and runs a vet clinic.
Yeah, and he's, like, being really cute with the dog, and he meets Skye, and she's like, oh, yeah, my name's Daisy, and he's like, that's a beautiful name, and he's so wonderful in this moment. Which is weird, because, like, isn't part of the reason why he's crazy because the drugs he took, not just the mental loss of losing Skye?
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like wiping his mind should be enough. But it's so sweet. Who doesn't want to help little puppies?
Yeah. Also, Skye claims her real name of Daisy.
Yes, because clearly she has now met her wonderful parents and should use a name that they picked for her rather than the one she chose for herself.
Yeah, I mean, I think her dad did some good by her, and that's what she's honoring.
Yeah, I suppose, and like she has grown somewhat attached to him, but I feel like not attached enough to actually swap her name to Daisy.
Probably not, but it's a nice sentiment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's it. The end was Gemma getting swallowed by the rock.
Yeah. And Coulson talking to Skye about setting up a superhuman squad among S.H.I.E.L.D. So basically, the mini Avengers within S.H.I.E.L.D.
So, Henry, what were your thoughts overall?
So overall, for this entire arc of the season, I really liked everything to do with the Inhuman stuff. But while all that's been going on, we've been dealing with Ward stuff, which has been interesting with Ward and 33, and the other S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff, which I honestly just didn't like. It just felt so rushed, and it felt like there was so much more potential if they just focused 100% on the Inhuman arc. So I liked it, but it could have been so much better. So I guess if I were to grade it, I'm leaning on like A to B. I think it's just a B. There's a lot of really good here, but man, there's a lot of stuff that just doesn't work right. This arc really began so strong with Skye having these new mysterious powers, but it was destroying her, to then she goes to the afterlife and finally meets her mom who helps her understand these powers. Like there's so much good, but man, there's so much that just doesn't work. So I'm going to go with, yeah, B. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said. Rewatching it now, I know it's hard to believe after listening to this podcast, but my opinion has actually risen quite a bit about this season. Because upon first watch, I just By the end of it, I hated it, and I would have given it a D or lower.
Ooh, harsh.
Yeah. But rewatching it, I realized the first half is really strong and really well done, and it's really just the second half. Like with the other Shield I didn't love, but it was decent, it kept my interest, and it was really only around episode 17, 18 that it started to dip into messiness, and the rest just was like, again, like you said, too rushed, setting up way too many things that they didn't actually do anything with, and including things that weren't necessary. I'm not a fan of the Ward and Kara stuff, and I think their choices for Ward are just not good anymore after this point.
Yeah.
And I really hate Jiaying and what they did with her.
She could have been so much better. They
Yeah.
should have kept her around. Sky should have turned her.
Yeah, but with the goodness before this and the parts of this arc that I did still like, even with the messiness, I'm going to give the season a B as well.
Yeah, I feel bad when we get into these episodes when we're ripping things apart so much, but it doesn't mean we don't like them. It just means that there are a lot of threads that you can pull and uncover, things that just don't work right.
Yeah, especially when you're watching it closely like we are.
Yeah, but that's what happens when you make a podcast about shows and movies. You really dig deep. But on that note, I have a kind of sad announcement. This podcast has taken a ton of work and takes a lot of time. It's not just rewatching the show. We also have to record, which takes longer than the episodes that you're listening to, and editing takes even longer, and setting everything else up. It takes a lot of time out of our lives, and finding the time to work on this podcast is becoming increasingly difficult. So we're going to be finishing phase 2, disregarding Daredevil, because that would be a whole other 3 episodes to do. But after that, we're going to pretty much close down the podcast. We're going to go on a hiatus. We might do one-off episodes now and then when a movie is coming out, but we're pretty much closing it after Ant-Man, and we also might do a phase 2 summary episode.
Yeah, it's been fun and it is sad, but it's a lot of time and we just have other priorities that we need to focus on. So if you do like us, though, I would say stay subscribed. We do think that we will be putting out occasional episodes, specials on new movies and stuff. So look out for those.
Yeah, for sure. And you can still reach out to us on our social media. We'll still be around. If you send us an email, also, we'll probably still answer. Assuming you're not listening to this in like 2040. Like, we still exist. We're just busy people.
Yeah. So on that note, if you do want to find us on social media and send us a farewell, you can find us on Facebook and Twitter at Marvelous MCU. You can find us on Instagram at Marvelous MCU Podcast, or you can send us an email at marvelousmcupodcast@gmail.com.
And wherever you listen to this podcast, make sure you like, rate, review, and subscribe. Even if we don't continue, it would be nice to know that people are still listening to and enjoying these episodes.
Indeed. So thanks for listening, and we hope you'll join us next time for our final movie episode, our final official episode of a movie
For now.
on Ant-Man.